What if I told you the greatest strength of the dollar could be going away much sooner than some realize? In this video, let's talk about the breaking news that the Western media just decided not to cover, what China's involvement is, and how all of this will have huge global economic implications. But before we dive into what happened, we need to understand what the dollar's greatest strength is and why losing it will become problematic for the United States. In order for us to do that, we have to go all the way back to 1945 when the leaders of the United States and Saudi Arabia met in secret aboard the USS Quincy in the Suez Canal. It was the first time a US president had ever met a Saudi king, but this meeting in particular had much bigger implications than either would realize. History shows that the main purpose for this meeting was security and regional concerns as World War II was winding down. Saudi Arabia was seen as an important chess piece during both of the world wars, even as they continued to express their neutrality, as there were fears of them falling under the influence of the Axis power. To help prevent this, Saudi Arabia was receiving financial aid from a Western power, not the United States, but instead Great Britain, who fully admitted Saudi Arabia had agreed to become, quote, a British vassal for good, and added, the addition to our responsibilities does not appear heavy. But up until this time, Saudi Arabia was yet to be known for oil like it is today. In 1933, an agreement was signed by Saudi Arabia and the Standard Oil Company of California to help look and drill for oil. The big breakthrough came in 1938 when large amounts of oil were found underground, so much so that it was able to be commercialized. However, the oil extraction and future prosperity it promised had to be postponed due to the start of the Second World War. So through this time, Great Britain continued to help Saudi Arabia financially, understanding the importance that they could have down the road. But another country had been keeping an eye on this situation. The reason that meeting aboard USS Quincy in 1945 was done in secret is because technically the war was still going on and the US had promised Great Britain that they would not intervene in territory controlled by the British. Oops. So looking back, had the US not intervened when they did, we could be looking at the petro pound instead of the petrodollar, completely changing the global economic outlook for decades later. But we know how the story ends. Saudi Arabia and the United States make an eventual agreement that oil sales can only be made in dollars in return for security protections. And if we fast forward to the present, approximately 80% of global oil transactions are priced in the dollar, the definition of a stranglehold in the market. But this could all be changing, and Saudi Arabia, ironically enough, could be the country to destroy the petrodollar. But before we talk about what's going on today, I make videos about world news impacting the dollar and the US economy, so if you like topics like this and want to see more of them, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So here we go. The digital yuan was used for the first time ever to settle a crude oil transaction with Saudi Arabia. The digital yuan is something China has been pushing hard to try and get a leg up in the digital currency race, and I would say this is a huge step in the right direction. But signs have been pointing to this for a while. In December 2022, China's president traveled to Saudi Arabia to meet with the crown prince. This diplomatic trip turned out to be very important, and many projected this could be the beginning of the end to the petrodollar. The 7 oil-producing nations of the Persian Gulf account for roughly 32% of global crude oil production, and they have half the world's proven crude oil reserves. The Chinese president proposed that the Persian Gulf nations start using the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange for energy transactions. Following the end of the visit, it was announced that Saudi Arabia is thinking about moving away from only transacting crude oil sales in the US dollar, ending 75 plus years of the handshake agreement. Also, a significant foreign policy fail for the United States, which could be why the main Western media outlets haven't reported this. The reason I know that is because I have ground news. I can copy and paste an article link or headline, and ground news shows me all the coverage on this topic. Then when you go deeper, you can understand so many things like the political biases of each of the outlets covering the topic and the narrative in each political spectrum. I have a link in the description if you want to check out ground news for yourself. It's a game changer. Okay, back to the story, because there are a couple significant factors that come from this digital yuan transaction. For one, Saudi Arabia was just strategically invited to join the BRICS bloc starting in 2024, along with other top energy producers Iran and the United United Arab Emirates. After these additions, BRICS will now have 6 of the top 10 oil producers in the world, and on a country level, China and India are 2 of the top 3 oil importers in the world, having over 2.8 billion people combined. So if you're a gambling man or woman, I would bet on seeing more of these crude oil transactions in the future, cutting out the dollar completely. The second significant factor is it's not just the crude oil, but natural gas was being settled in the yuan too. Recently, a purchase contract was settled in yuan with Singapore for 65,000 tons of liquefied natural gas. There have been other energy trade deals too, including liquefied natural gas trade between China National Offshore Oil Corporation and a company in the Gulf, as well as a company located in France. This chart here tells the story. Through 2022, cross-border transactions using the yuan has increased exponentially, totaling 42 trillion yuan. And when it comes to the digital yuan, it has been involved in 1.9 trillion yuan worth of transactions through June 2023. China has gone all in with their digital currency, and some of its functionality is really going to surprise you. Foreigners in China can sign up for an e-wallet using their international phone number, add their overseas Visa or MasterCard, and transfer their wallet balance back to their offshore accounts. Consumers are able to use this wallet anywhere that accepts the digital currency, which is over 5 million merchants countrywide. China's e-wallet app also introduced a new function that enables users to make payments without a charged phone or an internet connection. It's just the beginning of digital currencies, but already China has a huge head start on the rest of the world. So while Saudi Arabia helped initiate the petrodollar decades ago, it could be a big part of its demise. Saudi Arabia is certainly the most important country to be invited to BRICS, but there were 5 others. Find out who they are and what their potential roles with BRICS could be by watching this video here.